Strategy for success in this new era.
How to not only survive, but actually thrive in a harsh economic environment. So I go around the world and actually speak to entrepreneurs. Like every one of these pictures here is like in a different country. And I just feel really blessed with the opportunity to speak. A lot of it is through EO, Entrepreneurs Organization that Juan mentioned earlier. In order to be a member of this organization, you have to have a business that does at least $1 million in revenue. So it's not designed for startups. It's designed for businesses that are scaling up from a million to much bigger. And I've been in rooms with billionaires. Several people have $100,000 a year businesses, and a lot of people have like $1 million, $2 million a year businesses. So it runs the whole gamut. But there are about 14,000 members worldwide in about 75 different countries. So I literally have friends all over the globe. It's almost like a fraternity in itself because the members are so close and we all kind of speak the same language because we share things so deeply. So I feel really honored to have this opportunity. Been an entrepreneur for about 17 years now, full time. And, I've learned so much through not just the books, like the knowledge that Juan was speaking of. I probably read over 400 different business books, but, just the bumps and bruises of going through business. And, I've had a lot of failures. I've taken a lot of hits on the chin. And through those, I've developed a lot of learning experiences that I share with others. And what we'll talk about today is the skyrocket effect, because, I remember the early days of my business where it just seemed like things weren't going anywhere. But then you hit a certain point and things just take off in your business. And then you wonder like, well, how did I ever get here? But all of these little adjustments that you make and put in place get you to a point where your business is just operating at another level. And I just remember feeling like, oh man, I'm never going to get there, especially like when I first joined EO. I guess it was back in like 2010, 2011. I saw these people like with $1 million business, $2 million, $10 million. And here I was with like, my business at the time was probably doing about 400,000 in annual revenue. And I was just like, man, I just don't know what to do to get from A to B. But if they could do it, then I can do it. And I just started implementing the tools. And there's a lot of the tools you guys are learning as well. And some of the things I'm going to share with you today about how to get that skyrocket effect. Because the thing about the skyrocket effect is once the shuttle, if you use the metaphor of like a space shuttle, once it gets up into orbit, then it breaks that atmosphere and then it stays in orbit. It doesn't have to work as hard to stay up there. But all of the force is required at the beginning to get it up off of the ground. So I actually teach a course to other people in the embroidery business. I'll get into my businesses in more detail, but I have like my main business is Zeus Closet, and we do screen printing, embroidery, like customized apparel. We specialize in these really advanced custom fraternity and sorority jackets. That's a big part of our revenue. And I teach other embroidery business owners how to scale their business up to make over $1 million a year. And this is in an industry that's very saturated with mom and pop businesses, like literally a lot of husband and wife teams, and it's just them. They're the only employees. They're trapped in their business. So I teach them how to break through to that next level. But obviously there are a lot of parallels in different industries. So the things I'm sharing with you today translate not just from the embroidery industry, but to every other sector as well. And if you think about most service-based businesses, which is what a lot of us are in, my business is now kind of a blend between service and retail. But most service-based businesses go on this roller coaster ride of ups and downs, but then they're kind of drowning in their expenses and can't really get ahead, and it just feels like they're trapped. And this is just the harsh truth for most people in a service-based business. And I realized that I didn't want to become like this old lady on this sewing machine, actually doing the work myself when I'm 80, 90 years old. Because most people, like, you can be a business owner, you can be an entrepreneur. That word is used very loosely these days, but you got to be careful because a lot of people have basically just created their own job and then they imprison themselves because now you have a bunch of bosses and you can't escape this lifestyle. There's no freedom. There's unpredictable cash flow. and there's no succession plan. You hope you can pass it down to your kids, maybe if you have kids, but who knows if they're going to even want to do it. So I started thinking very early about this in my career. I remember being 25 and I went to this seminar about exiting your business. And it's funny, I'm sitting in this seminar. It was put on by like American Express or some financial institution. And everybody else in the room except me was a silver-haired white guy. So imagine a room with like 50 white guys all sitting watching this seminar about exiting their business. And there's like this little 25-year-old black kid in the room. And I was getting all these looks like, are you in the right place? But I was thinking about this early, very, very early in my business. Even though I wasn't preparing for an exit at that moment, I wanted to always have it in the back of my mind. The sad reality is a lot of companies go out of business because they don't have anybody to pass it down to. They didn't plan well for succession. And if the owners of the business are the business, is completely dependent on them, and something happens like divorce or a health issue, then the business dies with them. And it's a very sad reality. But I've always thought like I don't want that to happen to me. So, and I don't want that to happen to any of you guys either. So the things we're going to put in place here are systems to keep your business thriving and not dependent on you. Because at the end of the day, look, we want to make money, right? I'd rather be making money like a baby, sitting on a huge pile of cash, instead of working hard to bring in every single dollar and having to sweat over that dollar. The name of this group is Massive to Passive, right? So we want passive income. We want massive amounts of it. And these are some examples of other entrepreneurs that I've helped grow. These are actual people who are in EO now. So after I graduated to EO, I started leading an accountability group, which is like a small group of people about the size of this group, where we actually train. And this guy is like the top guy. He's a chiropractor. So he's not even in my industry, but I coached him and got him to a point where he made over $1 million a year. He actually made it in just 10 months and graduated the program. And now he owns 8 locations. The guy at the bottom, Jeff, he is a home inspector business, and he grew to make over $80K a month, and he ended up relocating his family to Charleston, where they wanted to live. It's a beautiful town. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but he spends more time with his family. I remember when I first met him, like he was stressed out, didn't have a minute to spare, and then with the tools that we implemented, he was able to change his lifestyle, change his income, change his whole business. So these are just a few examples, but things weren't always this way, right? So you're looking at EK now in 2020, but I want to give you guys a glimpse as to like where I came from and how things were in the beginning. I started out as an artist, like ever since I can remember, like at a young age, probably around like 8th grade, is when I decided that seriously I wanted to be a career artist, like drawing and painting. And my parents were like, no way, dude, like you're going to be broke. Like artists don't make any money until after they're dead. That's literally what my parents told me. But it was my passion, and I set out to prove them wrong. There's a picture of me like even in college, I was really passionate about fraternity stuff, always the kid that was drawing and painting stuff for the frat because I was like overzealous, designing the t-shirts, designing the flyers, designing the jackets. And I was just doing it for fun because I was an artist. That's what I wanted to do. But yeah, it's tough to make money as an artist. And I was pretty broke. So, I remember one night in particular, it was actually several nights, but I remember times when I only had microwave popcorn for dinner because that's all that was in my house. And I still love microwave popcorn to this day. But I remember just being like looking in my cabinet and be like, this is all I have for dinner tonight. So that image always just reminds me, and whenever I eat microwave popcorn, I think about those hard times. And unfortunately, I was a criminal also. So by the age of 19, I went to jail twice. And it was for stupid stuff like, misdemeanors like shoplifting and so forth. And I remember sitting in a jail cell the second time I got arrested. I called my dad to bail me out, and he was like, if this happens again, I'm not bailing you out. Like, you've got to get your life together. And that's when I really turned things around and decided that I was going to stop hustling and actually do things the right way. And one of the scams that I had gotten involved with was a hustle at the university bookstore, University of Georgia. And I actually got kicked out of college for a semester because of it. And he was the president at the time. This guy, his name is Michael Adams. And I remember he called me to his office and sat me down. He was like you're a disgrace to the University of Georgia, and I should expel you from school, because this was a scam that was like thousands of dollars. If they had actually caught on to what I was doing for real, like, it would have been a felony, but they didn't know all the intricacies of it. But it was enough to get me kicked out of school. And he actually showed mercy and only kicked me out for one semester, and I was able to come back and finish. But it was a very humiliating time for me because my face was like all in the newspaper, like in the crime section. My friends were laughing at me, and it was a really, really rough time in my life. So after that, I graduated, and so now I graduated with an art degree, and I had a criminal record. So as you can imagine, like, I was broke as a joke. And I moved to Atlanta, and my roommate was a bouncer at a strip club. So he was like, hey, I can get you a job at this strip club. And I ended up working at the strip club, taking out the trash and cleaning up the bar. I was a bar back. And it was in a real shady part of town. The building's still sitting there in South Atlanta. It's just an abandoned building now. But it was just a crappy time in my life. Like, I was humiliated taking out the trash and stuff at a strip club, getting home at 5 a.m. smelling like smoke and beer and stuff. And I ended up getting in really good with, like, at the time I was learning graphic design in the daytime and web design. And so I could take my art skills and actually make some money from them. So I was going through that pivot there. It's like, okay, being an artist, like drawing and painting, that wasn't working for me as a career. So I had to pivot, and I learned graphic design and web design. So taking classes during the day and at night doing these odd jobs like taking out the trash at the strip club. But then the DJs and the promoters at the strip club they realized what I was into, and they hired me to do some of the flyers and the graphics for the strip club. Now, as you can imagine, the stuff was like super raunchy. Like, there was nothing I could use in my portfolio to try to get a real job. So I was trapped in this lifestyle. Again, it's like, okay, I'm finally making some money in my field, which is what we want to do when we graduate college, right? But I couldn't really do anything with it because I couldn't show it to anyone. So I'm trapped in this whole cycle and wanted to get out. Plus, I was raised in a Christian household and just didn't feel right about using my talents to promote like smut and stuff like that. I felt like God wanted better for me. But I stayed in it because that's all I knew. And then there was one night that like really turned my life around. And it's when I got carjacked. Now, this obviously is not the real footage. This is a reenactment. But I saw this photo. It actually looked a lot like the situation. I was trying to get to a new strip club gig that a DJ had told me about, and I was lost. This was before we had iPhones and everybody had GPS in their pockets. So I'm kind of dating myself here, but that's how old I am, where we actually had to drive and know where we were going. So I got lost, and there was this dude. I had my windows down, and there was this dude like on the corner. I thought he was a homeless guy, and I was asking him for directions and stuff. And he walked up to the car like he was making conversation with me, and like he was going to help me out and asked me for some money. You're used to it in Atlanta, right? How many homeless people do you see on the street? Well, this dude wasn't homeless. He pulled out a gun, and he was like, get out the car, give me all your money, give me your phone. And I was like, oh crap. And I could tell he was kind of high on something. Like, you could see it in his eyes. And I really thought that this guy was going to kill me. I thought that was it, because I didn't have any money. But I was like, here, take my whole wallet. And I took off running. And in the background, like, I just knew this guy was going to like shoot me in the back. I hopped over a fence to my safety, and I could hear him in the background screeching off in my car. Heard the wheels screeching away as he drove off in my car with all of my stuff. And I had all of my equipment in there that I was using for the graphic design in the clubs, like the camera, the printer, all that kind of stuff that I was doing. So he drove away with everything that I had. And that was my wake up moment. I was like, okay, this is it. I got to get out of the strip club business. This isn't the life for me. God, I hear you. and I'm never gonna work in this industry again. And from that, after that day, I never, never, ever touched that type of business, with using my talents for that type of industry. And crazy enough, like things really started turning around after that. I got a full-time job as a graphic designer. With my freelance graphic design business, landed some big clients like Tyler Perry, actually emailed me out the blue. His assistant emailed me. This was before he was doing movies and stuff. So I did all of his stage play, merchandise, t-shirts, posters, playbooks, all of that stuff for Tyler Perry, and watched him grow and open up his studio and stuff. This picture at the top is in Tyler Perry's first office building. After he had hired my firm to do graphic design work, he was like, hey, we have some extra office space. Like, if you give me a discount, I'll let you use some office space. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I didn't need any office space at the time. I was just a freelancer working from home. But we had started this side business, Stuff for Greeks, and we actually put our first machine in that office in Tyler Perry's building. And then later we outgrew that little office and moved the business into our home basement, which is the picture you see at the bottom. And so Stuff for Greeks started growing, and at the same time, my graphic design business was growing. Actually, and these were just my side hustles. I had a full-time job as a graphic designer also, and then I was able to quit that job eventually and just focus on our businesses. So this is the first version of Stuff for Greeks. And I just like to point out here that, we initially launched Stuff for Greeks in the early 2000s, right after the dot-com crash. So looking back on it, it's kind of crazy. It's like, okay, we launched a .com right after all these .coms failed, but our .com prospered. So you can start a business, in a downturn, in a time of recession. The rules don't have to apply to you. You just have to do it right. And I always like to point out to people here, like, we were hustling. So my girlfriend actually photoshopped her into this group photo 3 times. It's the same girl. And just because, I couldn't afford a bunch of models, so I got my friends, and I just had to do, sometimes you just got to be scrappy and do what you can to make things work. This is the first version of Stuff for Greeks. And now we've grown to be one of the top Greek paraphernalia companies in the entire world. So feel very fortunate to be in that situation. Pretty much if you ask any Greek person, member of fraternity sorority, have you ever heard of Stuff for Greeks? They'll probably say yes. And they probably shopped with us. But our specialty is, there are a lot of Greek companies, but our specialty is making these very elaborate line jackets that you see with the artwork on the back. People pay anywhere from $400 to $1,000 for one of these jackets. And we feel very blessed. And I feel blessed because I'm still an artist. I'm able to put art on the back of a jacket, which is a blank canvas. So it's just a different medium. And I've trained other people to do it. So I'm not actually doing the jackets myself anymore. Right now I have people at my office, due to coronavirus, they're working one at a time right now, but we usually have a team of people running the embroidery machines. I have other people who do the design work, and I've trained them all to do it exactly the way I would do it, which is a very tough thing to do in a creative industry. But I feel very blessed that I figured that out in Stuff for Greeks. When you order from us, you get the same experience, whether I'm doing it or one of my team members is doing it. So then we outgrew our house and we saved up money and really pulled it together. And in 2008, during a time of recession, we actually bought an office building in West Midtown Atlanta. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like we were like, we don't want to rent a space. We studied Tyler Perry and we watched how he grew. And he was like, you don't want to rent, you want to own. So we actually were able to buy an office building. And that's where we opened the first Zeus's Closet store. And we moved our headquarters there out of our house. So this is Zeus's Closet. And now we have a second location up in Kennesaw. And we've just been very blessed. We've been in the paper a bunch of times. We've won all types of awards. Due to rapid growth. We've been on the Bulldog 100 list. I think Juan was on there also last year, so kudos to him. But that recognizes the fastest growing companies that are owned by UGA grads. We've been on that list 4 times. And the cool thing about it, the very first time that we made that list, we went on stage and I was presented the award by the president of UGA. And it was the same guy, the same president that had kicked me out of school 10 years earlier was now presenting me with this award for being one of the fastest growing Bulldog businesses. And that was a moment in my life where I knew, okay, now I'm on the right track. See, because you can sense in your life when you're not quite on the right track. I truly believe that the universe pushes you in different directions so that, when you're in alignment with your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing, you'll know it because things like this happen. Now, everybody asked, did he remember who you were? I have no idea if he remembers who I was, but he probably doesn't. But that was a really cool moment for me. So life is really good now. I've traveled all over the world. Pictures in Dubai. Damon, John here. We built a pool in our backyard. My kids are awesome. That girlfriend that was in that photo 3 times, she's now my wife. We've been married 17 years, and I'm just really enjoying life. So I feel blessed to be able to do this and to give back to people like I'm sharing with you guys right now. So let's talk about, enough about me. Let's get to some real meat here about what we can do when it comes to business strategy. But before we get to actual action tips, your mindset has to be right. So Tony Robbins says that success is 80% psychology and 20% skill. So focus on getting your mind right. And then when you start doing the actions, they'll be like 100 times more effective. And so you have to remember, especially in times like this, where we're in challenging times with coronavirus, people often get it wrong and say only the strong survive. But the actual quote is, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. So remember that adaptability is the key. Always be adaptable, be fluid, and get ready to pivot at any moment. Now, it doesn't mean you're like a leaf in the wind and you're just blowing around, but you're always strategizing about how you can adapt to the changing landscape. And one thing that really helped me very recently with this whole pandemic economy that we're in, you see all this negative news, right? And you think about, unemployment rates are just skyrocketing. People are getting laid off. People aren't spending money. I mean, if you read the news all day, it just sounds like we are doomed, like we're never going to come out of this. I've read something recently that said unemployment rates could get as high as 20 or 30%. This could be worse than the Great Depression. But then I heard something that made me look at it a different way. Okay, so what if unemployment rates did get as high as 30%? Well, that means that 70% of people are doing just fine financially. So focus on the 70% because that's the majority of people. So I translated that in my mind to mean that most people are doing fine and those people want to spend money with you. So focus on them. Don't focus on the relatively small part of the people that are hurting and can't spend money with you. Now, I'm not trying to be insensitive here. Obviously some people, I have friends that have actually lost relatives to COVID-19. So I'm not talking about that. There's definitely bad stuff going on, but I'm talking about business strategy, business finances. Focus on just the water. And this isn't just about like half, what does it say? Is the glass half empty or half full? I'm not talking about like the classic optimism versus pessimism thing. I'm talking about just ignoring the bad part, focusing on the good and doubling down on the people who want to spend money with you. And at first, when coronavirus first hit, colleges started closing, events were getting canceled. So this dramatically impacted our business because we do stuff for the Greek community. It's like, well, if college is closed and Greeks aren't crossing and probating, events are getting canceled, people can't gather together, well, we can't do business with them. So revenue came to a halt. And I got scared for a minute. I was like, okay, what are we going to do about this? But then once I changed my tune, and we had stopped our advertising, but about a week later, we ramped it back up. And then sales just started coming in online. It's like because most of the people wanted to keep shopping. They're like, hey, life is going to get back to normal. I want my stuff for when we cross. And then a lot of the business we do now at Zeus Closet. So we've expanded beyond the Greek market. About half of our business now is Greek. And then the rest of it is like we do corporate apparel. We do promotional products with your business logo on them. We do a lot of stuff for the movie and TV industry, like custom wardrobe. So, a lot of that stuff has been put on pause, but our Greek community is still shopping online with us, and we're still churning stuff out because I focused on the water. I focused on the 70%, the majority of people who are actually just fine right now. There's this book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And, when you want something, I truly believe if you want something, the universe actually conspires for you to help you achieve that thing. So it may seem like the world is against you, but just trust that even when things are bad, it's really conspiring for you to help you. So here's the thing you got to remember about business. Now, you can just focus on things that are going to make you money, but that's not the key to winning in life. The key to winning is finding that win. If you look in the center of this diagram here, finding that, some people call it the hedgehog, where it's an overlap of doing what you love, doing what you're good at, and doing what pays well. So you can't, that's the sweet spot. This right here, actually, if y'all want to take a screenshot of this or whatever, this is truly the key to winning in life, because this is the next best thing to just getting paid to doing nothing. Because if you're doing what you love, it's like getting paid for doing nothing. Now, you can do what you love and you can be good at it, but if there's no market for it, if nobody wants to buy it, you'll be happy. That's called a hobby. That means you'll be happy, but you'll be poor. Now, you could do, if you only had two and you were doing what you're good at and what pays well, that's nice. That's what a lot of people are trapped in. It's called a good job. And you can be really rich, but you can be really bored, really frustrated, and feel like you're not achieving your life's purpose. So that's not a win either. And if you were just doing what you love and what pays well, then that's just a dream. If you're not good at it, then, you're never really going to prosper there. So it's when you marry all three of these that you achieve the big win in life. And when you hone in on that, move full forward with full force and capitalize on it. And that's the key to winning. And don't be scared to pivot. A pivot isn't just going in a completely different direction. It's a change in strategy without a change in your vision. So my vision, like I told you guys early in life, was to be an artist. I wanted to get paid to do my artwork. And now I'm still getting paid to doing my artwork. But if you look at where I started, I wanted to be an artist selling, doing my drawings and paintings and making money off of that as my livelihood. Now I own retail stores and we're franchising our retail stores. I never could have thought like that I would be like A to B, because that's not a direct path. But it was a messy, with a bunch of pivots in the way. It was a messy journey, but it's still the same vision, just a different strategy. And we're talking about, how to get your business to $1 million. Now you sit down and do the math. You guys have probably seen this before, but there's a bunch of ways to get to $1 million in annual revenue. And I broke it down and figured out, okay, you got to make that $83,000 a month, but break that down into days, or break it down into business days even, and figure out how much you need to hit. It's either going to be like around $3,000 if you're making money every day, or it might be more like $5,000 if you're talking about business days. But set that number, have that, put it up on your vision board, put it up somewhere where you'll see it all the time, so that you're striving to hit that number, and then figure out what's your product going to be, and how many units do you need to sell to get you to that $1 million mark and beyond. So with us, I'll go back for a second. So with us, like I said, our key product was or still is the Greek line jackets, which average, might sell for about $300, $400. It's like, okay, well, I know if we sell 10 jackets a day, then we'll make that $4,000 to let us hit that $1 million mark. And now we make a lot more than that, but I know that that's a baseline, and I always have that in my mind, so that, some days we might get a big group order of 50 jackets. Another day we might only sell like 5 jackets, but then sell a bunch of t-shirts and then some trinkets and stuff. But I'm always having those numbers in the back of my mind. And when I'm looking at notifications and stuff, thinking about that $1 million revenue mark, that $2 million revenue mark. And I remember setting the goal of making $1 million a year. And then I changed the goal. I was like, okay, well, now I want to make $1 million a month. So now that's what I'm striving for, because if you know other people who are doing it, then you can do it too. And I know $1 million a month is just a $12 million revenue business. I know tons of people who are doing a $12 million revenue business. You got to make sure you surround yourself with people who are where you want to be. In fact, I know people, some of my good friends would kill themselves if they only made $1 million a year, because they would think that it's the end of the world and that they are broke and that they're a complete failure in life. That's how high their bar is set. And even though I would never get to that point mentally, I like being around those people because they think at a higher level, and that forces me to think at a higher level. So now, so we have a Greekpreneur program where we actually help other aspiring business owners who want to be in a Greek business. Well, we build the website for them. They pay us a monthly fee. We have 3 different plans, so $200 to $1,000 a month, depending on the level of service you want. But we actually build the website for them and we do the fulfillment for them. All they have to do is go market and get people to come to their website. So it's white labeled, it's under their brand name, but we're doing all the back end work and they get a percentage of the sales. So this is converting from that active revenue to more of a passive income type of stream. So this is another pivot. And I'm showing you guys this because there's all these different pivots that I've had throughout my career, and I'm still pivoting and figuring out different ways to bring in passive revenue. We're also offering franchises now for Zeus's Closet stores. So the Greekpreneur program is like a web franchise, but you can actually, for somebody who has bigger bucks to make a bigger investment, they can have a Zeus's Closet retail store and run it. And it's a true franchise opportunity. We get a franchise fee, we get royalties, but they have the established brand name of Zeus's Closet and they have an established customer base. So another strategy is create your own niche. There's a saying in jiu-jitsu is don't try to win from where you are. Try to get into such a position that winning is inevitable. So a big mistake a lot of business owners make is trying to be the low price leader, or try to be the best in an already established industry. But the key to strategy is to design your own niche market to where you excel in it. So with us, it's like we are the best at making the creative line jackets with no minimums. Like there's literally nobody better in the world than we are. But we carved out that particular niche and make it as narrow as possible. Think about the long tail description of what you do and own that. You own it because you created it. So here are some books. There's several books on it, but these are the top 3 that I would recommend about creating your own niche. So Blue Ocean Strategy. So there's blue ocean and there's red ocean. If they're using the metaphor of an ocean, and a red ocean is red because it's full of blood. Everybody's trying to do the same thing and it's hard to compete because you don't get noticed. But when you just create your own niche, then you're in your own blue ocean and life is easier. You can make way more money. 0 to 1 is by Peter Thiel. He's one of the guys who started PayPal. And it's all about just being the one person in your industry that dominates that industry. If you think about all the billionaires and titans of business like Rockefeller and them, man, those guys they created monopolies before it was illegal. Nobody knew what they were doing, but they dominated like the oil industry, the railroad industry, and they bought up other companies so that they could be the only one. That's how they got so rich. And then once America caught on, they made monopolies illegal. But that's why the game Monopoly exists, because that's what they were doing. But what you want to do is try to have a monopoly in whatever your business is. And don't get tied into just this one thing, whatever you're doing now. Again, think about that pivot and creating your own niche so that you can have a little monopoly in whatever your game is, and play bigger. Excellent book on the same thing, creating and dominating markets by creating your own niche. Now, when it comes to marketing strategy, you got to be everywhere and oversaturate each channel. I can't tell you how many people I've met who, when I tell them I own stuff for Greeks and they're in the Greek market, they're like, oh my God, you guys are everywhere. I can't escape. I go to CNN and I see ads for stuff for Greeks. And, on my Instagram, on my Facebook, you guys are everywhere. You're in my email inbox. Like, how do you guys do this? And it's been, it's like building a wall. You got to build it one brick at a time, but a lot of it is automated at this point. Now, of course, we still have to push out content, but there are a lot of strategies that I have behind it. I obviously won't have time to get into it in detail on this call, but we get into that like in our Greekpreneur program, because there's an online course that comes with it. But the key is to automate. You can't do it all. Like people think we have like this huge marketing team with this huge company, but really, man, it's just a couple of people who do our marketing, and most of it is automated because we set it up once and it's just automatically pushed out based on different triggers that we've set up. So some tools you can use to do this are Meet Edgar. So what Meet Edgar does is let you build up a library of social media content, and then you schedule it, and it'll like automatically just push out content to all the different channels, to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And it looks like you're sitting there posting all the time, but it's doing it for you from this library that you built and continue to build over time. IFTTT is if this, then that. You can set up triggers to say like, well, when I post to this channel, automatically post it to this channel and this channel and this channel. So that way you cut out the work and you're not sitting there manually just on social media every day or on your email all day trying to get content out. Hootsuite is another good scheduling program for social media. For email, you have Infusionsoft and MailChimp. Now, MailChimp is more of the entry level because they have a free plan where you can get in, I think maybe up to like 2,000 email addresses. But the key here is setting up those automated drip campaigns. So if you come up with the initial 10 emails where you're telling a story to your audience about, giving them benefits, maybe it could be like a 10 email course. You can set that up to be automatic. So once they get in, they're just getting email, maybe like one email from you a week on that course. And once you get a little bit bigger, like we're on Infusionsoft now because we have about 65,000 people on our email list. And we have all of these complex automated drip campaigns. Like if you're a member of a particular organization, you're going to get a sequence of emails about products for your particular organization. So it's very, very targeted. So we have all these different sequences set up. So that's a little bit more advanced, but always be thinking about the automation. An ad roll is a way to do retargeting, so that when someone visits your website and then they go on their Facebook stream, now you're appearing in their Facebook stream and you're in their Instagram stream. And then if they go on a news website, you're in the ad there. And that's how people are like, oh my God, you're everywhere. And they think you're just huge, but really you're just using a service like this to retarget. And when it comes to the content of your marketing, you always want to be telling a story. And I highly recommend this book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Get the book, get the audio book. He also has a podcast, and it's all about making your customer the hero of the story. And I find this very fascinating because every movie follows the same exact chart here, where you have a character and then there's a guide, and the character's trying to achieve something and the guide helps them get there. And then at the end, they become the hero. And it's all the exact same formula. When you want to use the same story formula in your marketing. So these are the tools that you can use, but tools are nothing without the right content. So always think about the story that you're telling, because people love stories. So, that's it. If you guys want to connect with me, check me out, ethanking.com. I got links to all the different ways to get in touch with me. And also follow my YouTube channel, which I actually just recently started a few months ago. But I started putting out some of my thoughts and content on video. So would love for you guys to join me there. There's a link to it on my website. But at this time, I will take questions.
Yeah, hey, Ethan, great presentation. I wrote something in there. I didn't think that it was gonna send. I was taking a note. But it sounds like, and from what you discussed, you've had a lot of opportunities to pivot, which is great. Like, that's how you continue to add different revenue streams and different passive opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about your process in deciding when to pivot, how to roll it out, how you're coming up with it? Are you or that process, and then specifically, is this something that, hey, you're just kind of going through this in your head, or do you have like people on your team that you take this to on a regular basis or consult with? Can you just talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, when it comes to pivoting, um, it's always easy to look backwards and see what worked, right? It's easy to connect the dots when you're looking backwards. But when you're looking forwards or when you're in the middle of it, you don't know what's going to work. You can only kind of try to guess, right? So like so basically, the short answer to your question is, it's like if you had a bowl of spaghetti and you throw the noodles at the wall, some of them are going to fall off and some of them are going to stick to the wall. So throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. That's the short answer. But so right now, for example, with coronavirus going on, well, we make clothing. So of course, one of the pivots that we're doing is making masks. That's the short term. It's like, okay, obviously people need masks, people need face shields. Well, we figured out how to make that stuff using the machines that we have. People are also doing more home-based businesses. So we're pushing more content towards stuff like the Greekpreneur program where people can work from home. Now, I don't know, you have to ask me 5 years from now, which one of those things, I might have a business that's only making masks and that business might be doing $1 million a year. I don't know yet, but at that point I might be giving a presentation and say, hey, we pivoted back in coronavirus and started making masks and now we're mask.com or whatever. Or the Greekpreneur program might be huge. We might have 100 Greekpreneurs and 100 retail store locations under our franchise umbrella. So that pivot. But so I always have a bunch of different things happening at the same time. And you want to be careful not to spread yourself too thin because you can, you do have to have some degree of focus. But at the same time, you want to always have a little dabble in this and that. And then you start to see what's catching on. Like even with Stuff for Greeks, when we first started, we were just offering like graphic design services. But then we had a service where we would draw up your jacket and give you the design. And I remember we were charging like $75 just to lay out your jacket. And then we'd say, go get it done at your local Greek store or whatever. And then people in different parts of the country were like, I don't have a Greek store. I need you to make my jacket. And at the time, we didn't know how to make jackets. So I was like, I don't make jackets, dude. You got to go get it made wherever you are. I don't even know what it's called. Like, go find an old lady with a sewing machine. But then when people started asking and they were like, I will pay you money to make my jacket. I remember we took this girl's money, $200. She paid us to make her jacket. And then we had to go figure out how to do it. I remember searching like, what is this even called? Is it called stitching? Is it called embroidery? And we found a company that could do it for us and they charged us less and we took the profit. So we outsourced it at first and we learned how to do it on our own. But that was a pivot. So we had a bunch of things going on and you find out what sticks by who's actually paying you money to do that thing. Does that answer your question?
It does, but then the second kind of part of that is, kind of a little bit more the intimate details in your, when you're coming up with these ideas. Like, are you spending your own quiet time and deciding like, hey, I think this is a good idea and I'm going to execute, or do you have group thinking like brainstorming sessions, or do you if you come up with something personally, do you take it and consult with your team? Just kind of how you make the decision before you execute.
Yeah, all of the above. Honestly, it depends on what it is. Obviously, early out, it was just me. So I was coming up with the idea and executing on all of it. But as my team started to grow, there would be times when I came up with an idea and I would delegate this. I'd get it to a certain point and then delegate it to like one employee or to like a team of people to say, hey, design stuff around this and put it out and let's see how that goes. So it just really depends. But you're the brainchild, so you're going to be the initial seed of it. But you have to get it to a point where you can pass it off for somebody to execute it so that they can see it through.
Got it. Yeah. I find myself at times as an entrepreneur, like coming up with something and then just moving forward. And I'm trying to take some time to step back, think about things through, maybe have a conversation and think about the best way to execute. So just trying to get a feel for kind of how that evolution that's come about with your own business.
Cool.
Hi, Ethan. How you doing?
Hey.
I'm Chantel Owens. Nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing.
Nice to meet you.
I enjoyed listening to your story. I have a lot of parallels to your story. One question I wanted to ask is in reference to your seven-figure coaching program and the people that you coach. I noticed with the two people or the two examples that you have, you mentioned that, they're running those businesses and they are doing it like in a shorter span of time. So I'm just curious to hear you, like expand on that and see how do you go about that, and if you can offer some tips in reference to that.
So what do you mean exactly?
So I know you said the one guy, he was, kind of just stressed out, doing a lot of things in his business. Now he's, he has more businesses and he's, working less in those businesses and, just spending more time with his family.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, it's different for every business. So that was those people when I'm coaching them, it's either like in a one-on-one or a group environment. So I already know like the intimate details of what they're working with. So it's like if you're playing cards, I can only give you strategy based on the cards you have in your hand, right? So I can't give you strategy on somebody else's hand. So like with those particular situations, one guy, so it was what it boils down to was a trust issue. Like he didn't trust his employees to do the work as good as he could have done it. So we had to coach him through delegating more and outlining his systems and processes and checklists. So, it's going to be a different solution for each business to get them to that next level, which is, way more than we could talk about on this call. But as I think you guys are kind of going through a similar curriculum where you have people, cash, strategy, and execution, you got to think about each one of those areas and then really dive in. For some people, they have a people issue where they need to hire somebody, but maybe they're scared to, or they don't have the money right now. So they got to figure out, like, well, who do I hire first? Like maybe they need to hire a freelancer just to get some of this work done so they can free them up to bring in some bigger dollars so then they can hire other people. So there's always a strategy when it comes to people. Some people have a marketing issue. They're marketing, but it's not working. So they need to change up the tone of their marketing, change up what they're saying. And some people just have a cash issue where they don't have a good business model. Maybe they need to change something and make their business more profitable. A lot of times, to be honest, this sounds like super easy, but in a lot of businesses, people are just not charging enough. They just need to charge more. Just double your prices. And you'd be surprised how many more people will still continue to shop with you. In fact, if you study pricing psychology, some people will be more attracted to you because you have the higher price. So I've coached some of my clients into just increase your prices, and that's instant profit. So I hope that answers your question, but it's going to be different for each person, and you really kind of have to dive into the one-on-one experience and get lift up the hood and see what's going on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ethan, I got a question. This is Terrence. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Terrence. How are you?
Man, great presentation, man. I liked it.
Thank you.
I think I might have been at one of those strip clubs you were at one of those nights, man. I'm eager to know, when you spoke with the person from University of Georgia, you said he didn't remember you. Did you guys have that conversation? I'm eager to know what that conversation was like. Or was it just, he probably didn't remember and you kind of kept it moving?
No, we had to keep it moving. It was at a big award ceremony, so there were hundreds of people there. And,
okay.
They would call each person up on stage and you get your award. And I didn't know he was going to be the person handing out the awards. I was just happy to get the award. And we showed up at the banquet and I was like, oh man, wow, that's Michael Adams on stage and he's sending me this award. I remember when he kicked me out of school, but no, we didn't even have a chance to have any type of real conversation.
That'd be awesome. That's actually pretty good. The second question was, as far as your Greek paraphernalia. So these people that are trying to sell Greek paraphernalia that I guess work with you or you build the website, do they have different types of Greek companies, or are they selling the same thing just in a different area? How is that set up when you have people?
Yeah.
And I'm asking, yeah, because I actually have a person that I know that's actually trying to do that. I'm just trying to get an understanding. Are you like a co-sponsor of it, or just how does that work with your particular company?
Yeah, so the way the Greekpreneur program works is it's their brand name. So whatever, like we have like one that's one in the past. It was like GreekGalleria.com. So she had her own brand, her own logo, her own website address, and the products. So depending on what level, which plan you choose on the Greekpreneur program, you can design some of your own products and we'll sell them on your website.
Okay.
You can use our products and offer our designs. You can have a mixture of the two.
Okay.
And we will,
okay.
but we do all the fulfillment for you. We do the embroidery, the screen printing, the shipping. We handle the customer service for you. So all that you have to do is get people to your website and get them to shop.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, do you find yourself going through any of like traction or scaling up tools like with your team where you do goal setting, coming up with your own like the vision tracking or vision planning that you have in your business where you're setting strategy forward, beginning of the year, end of the year, recapping? Is that something that you have as a part of your yearly or monthly even?
Yeah, definitely.
Workflow?
We've actually done scaling up and we've done traction. So probably what we have now is probably a little bit of a blend of the two. But there's some similarities. So it's all about meeting rhythm. So we have an annual strategy summit. Well, actually we have it twice a year. So in January, we have a beginning of the year strategy summit where we take a whole day and bring the team together and just really deep dive into our strategy for the year. And then in the summer, we have a summer summit. So it's usually in June or July when business is a little bit slower for us. So that's kind of like our halftime of the year. It's kind of like our locker room talk where we all get in there at halftime and say, okay, what's working, what's not. We always look back at the previous summit and see where we came from, see what our plans were, and kind of check where are we on this? What do we need to do to move forward? Should we just scrap this? So yeah, we definitely have two big deep dives per year. And then we also have, we have daily huddles. So you have the big meetings, and then every day we have like a 10-minute huddle. And that's just very tactical. Like, okay, what are you working on today? What are you working on today? Where are you working on today? What was your win from yesterday? So this is a really quick, all standing meeting. Juan has actually sat in on one of my huddles before when he came to visit my office.
Well, I tried to. You kicked me out.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. That's kind of what I was getting at, and with my first set of questions is just, is that are you setting these game plans forward and working with the team and then executing? I think a lot of us on here at some point recently, we're just kind of seeing an opportunity or deciding on something and then going, right? And so transitioning to, and I've done like the EOS stuff as well, but I don't think we've continued to be as consistent as we'd like. So it's good to hear that that's still working for you, and you're still kind of doing some of that EOS or traction scaling up methodology.
Yeah, and I've also used, I don't think this is in either one of those books, but I've also learned stuff from being in the EO leadership space that I've applied to my own business. But a quick thing you can do is a process called start, stop, keep. And what you do is you get a bunch of Post-it notes and you write things down that are going on in your business, or even ideas that you have. You stick them up on the wall and say, okay, should we start doing this? Should we stop doing this? Should we keep doing this? Like, what's working, what's not? And just that start, stop, keep, when you have a bunch of minds thinking on it, it can open up so many other opportunities and really outline your strategy.
With what regularity do you do that?
So we do that in our summits.
Nice.
So that's the twice a year. So we always start with start, stop, keep. And we'll do it at this point. We do it like department based. Okay, production department. What's working? What's not? Start, stop, keep. And I'll let my team members say, okay, well, you know what? I think we should start doing this. So I'm trying to see if I can think of an example. But let's keep doing this. You know, it's working. Well, let's stop doing this. Like there was like one process that we eliminated because it was just redundant. It was wasting time. So it was like, okay, well, let's stop doing it. We thought about it. It's like, okay, what will happen if we stop doing this? Are there any ramifications we're not thinking about? We couldn't think of any. So it's like, okay, let's just stop doing that. So that it's very crucial to always kind of take a lens and look at every process in your business and even ideas and say, should we start doing this? Should we stop doing this? Should we keep doing this?
Very cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question, Ethan. You mentioned before that you were at one point making $400,000 a year, and then you end up obtaining $1 million of revenue plus. If you can condense it to one major strategy you implemented to take you from 400K to $1 million, what would you say that main strategy would be? I know it could be several, but what was the one defining one that stood out?
Yeah, the one game changer. So I get that question a lot. It's really tough to narrow it down to one. But if I had to pick one, it's really focused around culture. I'll say this was the biggest change that I made in my business, and it took me like 3 years of hearing this over and over to actually do it. But it was establishing our company's core values and reiterating them over and over and over again. Now, it felt super corny at first, and I heard about it, they talk about it everywhere. Oh, core values, blah, 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 integrity, blah, blah, blah. And then I asked somebody this exact same question in an accelerator meeting. I was like, what's that game changer, man? What'd you do? And he was like, core values, man. We actually did it after hearing it. So I said, okay, well, if it worked for him, he got to $1 million, I'm going to do it in my business. So I sat down and so we actually got our team together and we huddled. And I said, okay, what are some words? Now you have to do this as the leader because your business's core values are a reflection of your core values. But we put a bunch of words up on the board because you also want to make it catchy and easy to remember. But I remember having all these words on the whiteboard that we brainstormed with our team, and we boiled it down to these four: promises, accuracy, logic, and systems. So those are our core values, and the acronym is PALS, PALS. So promises means that we do what we say we're going to do. Like if you buy a jacket and you pay for 2-week rush, it's guaranteed in hands in 2 weeks. We deliver no matter what. I mean, you always want to tell things with stories so that people remember it better. I remember one time a girl that ordered a graduation stole, and she was graduating on like May 15th on a Saturday, and we had completely dropped the ball. I don't know how, but we totally missed the order. And she called us and she was like, on the day before her graduation, like on the Thursday or the Friday before her graduation. She's in Chicago. We are in Atlanta. The graduation stole only retails for like $40. But because we dropped the ball, we actually had to pay for FedEx same day service, which cost us $300 to make sure that girl had her graduation stole in time for her graduation. So we took a huge loss on that, but that's how important promises are to us. So accuracy, like when we send people a design proof to show them exactly how their jacket or their shirt is going to look. And our promise to them is that your final product is going to look exactly like your design proof that you approve. So accurate, we've redone entire orders if we're just off by an inch or two. It's happened a lot in our business. Logic, you're going to be thrown curveballs all the time in business. So use your logic, use deductive reasoning from that last thing you encountered and apply it to this situation so that you don't have to come ask me as the boss all the time, well, what do I do about this? Apply that logic. And a part of that, another L, is lifelong learning. So we share audiobooks with the team. We'll all listen to the same audiobooks, and in some of our huddles, we'll discuss the audiobook. So we're always learning together and applying logic. And then systems. vitally important. Like read the E-Myth Revisited. That's one of the best books on systems out there. But you want to make your business like a franchise. Even if you're not going to franchise it, you want to have every process documented, checklists, procedures, step-by-step procedures, so that you can, I mean, think of it like I could go grab somebody off the street sitting at the MARTA stop and say, hey, come in here, read this, watch this video, and execute on this. And they should be able to know how to do it. You should be able to take any complex system and break it down into steps so that anybody can do it. If you can't do that, then you don't have a real business until you do that. If you think about McDonald's, McDonald's isn't about burgers. People don't go to McDonald's because it tastes great. They go because it's reliable. The experience should be pretty much the same at any McDonald's you go into anywhere in the world. And from the way that they package it to how long it takes to how long the fries are cooked. I mean, this is all documented. And that's what McDonald's is selling to their franchisees, is this system, this business in a box. So yeah, when I established those core values, and you can't just establish them and then have it be one meeting and then never talk about it again. You have to talk about it over and over and over ad nauseum. So we have our core values up on the wall. In every huddle, we actually have a company creed that I wrote. I got the idea from church, but like in church, you say the Apostles' Creed. Well, in our business, we have our company creed that everybody reads, and it contains the 4 core values and what they mean. I mean, it only takes about 30 seconds to read it, but that repetition bakes it into people's minds. And the thing about core values is every decision in your company should be made based on the core values. If you're going to hire somebody, if you're going to fire somebody, if you're going to, whatever action you take has to be based on the core values, just like we made the decision to ship that girl's graduation stole, because the core values is the foundation. So to answer your question, Juan, that to me is the #1 game changer in going, and actually I have a video about this on my YouTube channel, but in going from just being a mom and pop, like fly by night company who's always changing stuff, to becoming like a real business that's generating constant revenues, 7-figure revenues. You have to establish those core values and repeat them over and over again.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions for Ethan?
Yeah, I got a question, Ethan. What's your training times look like for your team? How often do you train the huddles and things of that nature? Or how often? I guess when you jumped up to that $1 million revenue, what was that training look like? Was there something in place weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever the case may be?
It depends on the role. The initial training curve is going to be a bit longer. Like, for example, in our production department, for the embroidery, like that's pretty complex. So the entire training process might be about 3 months. But, with somebody who's like customer service, that might be like a week or 2 weeks. But, you have your initial training, but then you have ongoing training, and you have to give constant feedback. And we actually use a software called Trainual now, where we document the systems inside of Trainual. And so it's kind of like taking an internal online course. And I can always update the systems and go tell somebody to retake a certain part, and you can put tests in there so that you can test their proficiency. But training has to be an ongoing thing, but initially it's going to be different depending on what the role is.
Okay. Oh.
All right, any other questions? Nope.
Good stuff, man.
Are we doing on time? We're good? Okay. Well, all right, guys. Well, hey, I really enjoyed speaking with y'all. Reach out to me anytime. My email address is ethan@ethanking.com. You can get it on my website, or, Juan knows how to get in touch with me. Even if you guys want to text me, hey, I'm here for you. If there's any particular content or any questions you think of later that you'd like me to make a video about, I'm happy to do that as well, because if you have the question, somebody else has the question also, and I want to help as many people as I can. But I really hope in these times that none of you guys are too affected by the situation with coronavirus and COVID-19. I certainly pray that nobody's family or loved ones have been affected health-wise by this. If so, you definitely have my deepest sympathies. As far as the businesses, we're going to get through this, with when it comes to like revenue and finances, we'll get through this, and you're going to look back on this and appreciate the time. It doesn't seem like it when you're going through it, but even in this presentation, there have been rough moments in my career where I thought that we weren't going to make it, and we came through. It felt like hell in the moment, but when we look back on it, we actually prospered from it, and because of it. So just remember that, the universe is conspiring for you, not against you, and just keep your head up and keep moving forward. All right, guys.
Awesome. Good stuff, Ethan. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.